but that might impact their future on the show. Perhaps most importantly, I knew how things were being received by the viewing audience. So if I suggested that one cast member be more outgoing or emotional, they understood the reasoning for those suggestions. Around week 2 or 3, I found that I was pulling Perry aside fairly frequently. Perry proved to be an excellent competitor on the physical events, the extreme obstacles created for the show, and did okay with the other challenges, but really seemed to struggle outside of those activities. The focus groups and viewers were really having a hard time getting to know Perry more, the person. This failure to connect with other cast members and the viewing audience was ultimately Perry's downfall. I met with Perry daily from June 25th, the day of the second vote, up to until July 2nd, the day of the third vote. I offered a few tips on how to interact with other housemates. I suggested certain actions that Perry might take that would look great on camera. I even provided Perry with a tagline, "Oh, now I remember." That might enhance likability and play on the whole reason people wanted to watch the character. Perry was resistant to all my suggestions. You can only do what you can do, and then you just leave things to fate, right? Typically, as the day of the vote approaches, I get a good feel about who's going to be on the outs. In seasons 1 and 2, Chris did not want to know my suspicions, but for this celebrity edition of the show, Storm seemed to be more engaged in this aspect. When I reported that I thought Henry Hamilton might be the next to go, Chris seemed very concerned. Storm asked me to pull aside anyone whom I suspected might be voting for Hamilton and gauge both the reason and the strength of that commitment. Chris remarked something like, "Henry just makes good TV. We can't afford to lose him so soon, just when the audience is getting invested in their story." I understood the message loud and clear. I understood the message loud and clear, and after the daily cast meeting on July 1st, I pulled Clara Khan, Mary Rose Shelley, and Mel Shaw aside for a little chat. I simply asked who they were thinking of voting out. All three indicated that they hadn't made up their mind. Each was thinking of Henry Hamilton. I encouraged them to think more deeply about the value of each remaining contestant and reminded them that even though someone may be successful in one aspect of the show, that didn't give them immunity. I did not specifically mention Perry more in that conversation. I arranged to check back with all three of them at dinner that evening. I got a little distracted by another show issue that I was dealing with, but I did catch up with them much later. It must have been close to midnight. We met outside of the camera perimeter by one of the production studios for a more private chat. At that point, I straight up asked who they were planning on voting out. Apparently, my earlier session that day hadn't had the desired impact. While a little more iffy, all three still indicated an inclination to vote Hamilton out. That's why I suggested we go through some of the other likely candidates. Again, I did not single Perry Moore out specifically. We discussed the other eight contestants remaining and reviewed the relative merits of each. When we got to Perry, they were all impressed by Moore's accomplishments and the challenges, but agreed that there wasn't a whole lot else to recommend Perry as a contestant. I think that got the group thinking a bit more about the whole process. I left them by using Storm's favorite line, "Just vote your conscience." I reported back to Chris in the morning. We met again as usual that morning for breakfast, and I related in more detail my conversation with Clara Khan, Mary Rosa, and Mel. And that's when Storm made an unprecedented decision to join me for my morning meeting with the cast, and for another private meeting with a group of 3 voters. McLean laid it on thick and heavy. Storm played up the strengths of Henry Hamilton as a valuable member of the farmhouse. Chris hinted that there may be an upcoming challenge where having Henry still around would be a major advantage. Remind all of them that mere success in the challenges did not make up for lack of personality and lack of positive interaction outside the challenges. Chris even said, "Listen, Perry's very, very good at the game, but really bad outside of it. I suggest you consider Perry's worth to the show." Storm reiterated that they should vote their conscience, but then also reminded each of their side agreements, and that PSEG had taken care of them. But there was no explicit threats, no bribes, no quid pro quo. That must have been some impact. Storm left the meeting, but I stuck around to listen to the conversation among the 3. While nothing was certain until the actual vote later that day, it sure sounded like things were trending on the right direction. When the actual tally was done, Perry received 4 votes. 2 other contestants had received 3, and there was a single vote for 2 others. Perry was voted out of the house and moved to our alternative location, a nearby hotel, for the remainder of the filming of the show. I continue with my showrunner responsibilities.